Welcome to the Bulls REKAP Podcast. I'm Joe Colley of the Chicago Sun-Times. This is episode 15, the live version. Just got back from New York this morning. We got 26 games left, and it feels like big deal. 26 games, who cares? They're dead team walking. Couldn't be further from the truth. We had a lot of discussion the last couple days with Billy Donovan as far as the importance of what these 26 games mean. So let's bring in my tag team partner today, Ryan. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Joe? Man, I'll tell you what.
I like these live ones.
Yeah, I know they're fun. And then we encourage, you got questions, fire them in. I'll tee them up in between Joe's rant about the Bulls and anything NBA and anything actually that just quite frankly pisses them off. So
yeah. So look, I mean, number one thing, and I don't think this is a surprise to anybody, number one priority for this team, and I just wrote about this on the plane ride, from New York back to Chicago this morning. It's all about Modest Buzelis at this point. Billy Donovan brought up a great story yesterday. He's trying different ways to get in this kid's head. And the thing he likes about Modest, unlike Pat Williams, so here's the little secret about the two that a lot of people don't discuss. Modest can be told directly by any of the coaches on the coaching staff, that was good, that was shit, fix this, fix that, and F feelings, there's no emotion attached to it. He doesn't get hurt. He wants to be coached hard. Billy loves that about him. Patrick Williams, what they're finding out, all these guys have certain coaches that work with them during the pregame. They're kind of assigned to them.
Yep.
They've gone through like 3 or 4 different guys with Patrick Williams. Now, obviously, some coaches have left. Some coaches have been fired. But right now, it's Peter Patton's job to try and unlock this kid and get in his head and get him to understand things. And it's not that he's prickly about it. It's just he shuts down at times when criticism is launched his way. So they have to figure out it's not only his game is not only an enigma, but the man himself is an enigma.
Then how did he get re-signed?
Well, that's the thing. Arturis, and this is my fear going into the summer, is Arturis dies on these hills that only he is willing to die on. And is he going to die on the Josh Giddey hill? Or is he going to do the smart thing and realize that most of the teams in the NBA are going to be strapped for money this offseason? He is a restricted free agent, which means you get to match any offer. And is he going to let the process play out and let him go to market? Or is he going to think he's the smartest guy in the room again and say, well, we got him off of the $30 million a year that he wanted, the Jalen Suggs contract that he wanted, and now he wants 22. So let's give him that because that's, he came down. I hope that's not the case. My fear is if Josh does come down or his agent does come down, will it be something where Arturis actually thinks he's getting a deal? But again, I'm hoping he learned lessons. But shouldn't you? Should this be a job where you're kind of learning on the fly?
But that's what I'm asking. If Patrick Williams is on his third coach to try to get in his head,
it's more than that. It's assistants that are.
Is there no? Yeah. But is there no relationship between, why isn't he going to Billy going, hey, we're thinking about going 5 for 90 with P. Will?
So, Billy has the final say with these guys, and Billy does visit these guys in the offseason and stuff. But we're just talking the day-to-day, get your shots up, get this up while Billy's watching film, pregame, who you work with, who gets you through your warm-up. That's the kind of – they're trying to find the right guy to unlock him. So, and again, you invested $90 million in that. So
here we have a question about P. Will. Okay. Would you label him a bust?
I would not label him a bust at this point. I would label him a huge miss and a disappointment. A bust, to me, is a guy who is no longer even serviceable in the league and for your team. And I think he is serviceable. There was a spark of him coming off the bench. The one thing I'll say is forget attaching number 4 overall pick to him. If you're still going to carry that weight on him, then you're going to be miserable every time you watch him. I've kind of released that a long time ago. He's not a number 4 overall pick. That was a mistake. And if they can't admit it, I'll admit it for him. It was a mistake. I think they're finding that out, and their actions are speaking louder than words. He's lost his job to a rookie.
Yep,
that tells you all you need to know. So the one thing, getting back to Buzelis, the one thing that's nice is, like I said, you can tell him this is what you need to be great, and he wants to be great, and that's the cool thing about him. He doesn't back down from challenges, but you could tell him how he messed up on that path to challenges. And one of the stories Billy brought up is he recently asked Joakim Noah, because, obviously those two are really tight from the Florida days. He asked him, what made you have that kind of crazy motor and just never stop and just kind of, you didn't have the talent of a lot of guys, but you just kept going. And he said, my dad, obviously Yannick Noah, great tennis player, French legend tennis player, taught me when he was at the U.S. Open and staring across the net at Jimmy Connors and Bjorn Borg, guys that he knew I am not even close to their talent level as far as a ball striker, however you want. But what I can do is try and out-hustle him, and that was a lesson. So that's what he's trying to instill in Modest right now. He needs Modest to be that guy that says, my talent has now been run down. I was dominant in high school. I was pretty dominant in the G League at times. Those days are gone. So now what separates me? Because the margins are so small at this level. So what's going to separate me on this path to greatness? And the thing about Modest, he still thinks he could chase down Rookie of the Year. It's still kind of open. I don't think he could run down Castle. I don't think he could run down Richer. I don't think he could run down SARS kind of slowed down, but it'll be tough to catch Castle at this point, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, what does he give you these final 26 games? So that is priority number 1.
He's currently, just on that note, he's 9th. If you're looking for a sleeper bet, he's 55 to 1. He's 55. Castle's the favorite at -175. It's Wells, Ware. We have I don't even know the kid in Atlanta, Zach Edey, still at 14 to 1. Sar, Klingon, Collier, then you got Modest.
Then you got Modest. Yeah, I mean that's about right. Those are the guys he's got to jump. The nice thing is they go get Deere and Fox, and Castle is now trying to get minutes off the bench. Now, does the Wemby thing change that? I don't think so, because it's different positions. So his roles changed a little bit with the addition of Deere and Fox, so he could make some ground up on him. It'd be tough though with 6 weeks left in the regular season. And again, if you're on a team that's not doing well, it's hard to justify I'm the best rookie on this crappy team. So, and he knows that. And the thing about Modest is he goes, I want to be Rookie of the Year, but I don't want it to sacrifice winning. I still want winning to be the number one thing. So
you love that.
I love that. He said, look, he's getting better with the media. He's not the greatest with the media at all at times. He's getting better, but you can tell he says the right things and he does the right things, and all his teammates and his coaches are praising him. So he is by far priority number 1. If they could come out of the season feeling like he's not a future Hall of Famer, or they don't even have to think he's a future All-Star, but if he is a major foundation piece, what that does for these next 2 drafts is, okay, now we're going to have 3 dudes that we feel talent-wise, because that 25 class we've talked about, 26 is shaping up to be absolutely ridiculous. You guys went to Kansas a couple weeks ago. Kansas has who could be the number 1 guy coming in, the way he's played against the Boozer twins. And so, it's going to be exciting to see if they can land 2 guys. Now, the drafts haven't been the greatest for them, but Modest could be the one that breaks the trend. So, all eyes on him the final 26 games. And yesterday was kind of 5 points, but he had 7 rebounds too. So
yeah. I mean, he's got to be, if he's not going to be, scoring 12, 15 a game, he's going to have to do it at the other end and do the dirty work, get the scrappy board. Here's another question from Dustin. And this seems to be a popular, there's a lot of fans saying, why is Billy still here? And I think you're the perfect guy to explain why, because look, you can make a case if it's just on wins and losses. yeah, then why is Billy still here? But it's more than that. Dustin says, is he a bust?
Well, okay. There's a lot of criticism thrown at Billy. And at the end of the day, and Billy will be the first to admit it, your record is your record. There's no hiding from that. It is the worst stint he's ever had coaching. There's no hiding from that. He was great at Marshall. He was great at Florida, obviously, a Hall of Fame career at Florida. He was really good at OKC. He inherited a lot of great pieces, but he was good there. There were years that everyone thought there was going to be a down year, and Billy comes in and kept the thing afloat. The Chris Paul year is the one I was thinking of. It has not gone well, but here's the thing. I don't know why the Bulls and the Bulls fans think that this is a hotbed for coaching, because between Fred Hoiberg and Boylan, there were coaches telling me, Carlisle's in charge of the coaching association, or he used to be. He was warning coaches, assistants and head coaches that may be out of jobs, stay away from the Bulls and that regime. It was the old regime, but stay away from it, because you will always, and coaches are always the scapegoat, but you will always be scapegoat number one with the Bulls. And so this is not an easy place for a guy to want to come and coach. It's just not. It's been seeped in mediocrity. The best coach they've had since Phil Jackson was Tom Thibodeau, and you saw how dirty they did him. And that resonates in the profession. So the fact that they have Billy Donovan, who to me is, I've said this before, he's not that top tier. He's not in those top 5 guys. He's that second tier, though. And if you're the Bulls, that's as good as you're going to get. If you get the right talent, I think Billy can guide this team through playoff series. I think he's really good out of timeouts. That's how you judge a coach. I think he's really good with the way he talks to players and the way they respect him. He checks a lot of boxes, except some wins and losses. And so I will argue that Billy Donovan, for right now, until I see something otherwise, is the right man for this job. And I don't think if Bulls fans think a different coach could come here and things would be different, they're out of their minds.
Yeah, David, and there are people like David here. He's a word salad coach, perfect for this mess of a front office. I always ask these questions when we're talking White Sox, etc. People want to fire everyone. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Who are you replacing him with?
Yeah. Who's your solution? Yeah.
Who are you replacing him with?
And the word salad thing, people don't understand. And it's not just because we're in New York and because Tibbs gives the media nothing yesterday. Even after yesterday, here was my question to Billy. I said, Billy, I know you're not going to label Patrick Williams a bust, or a disappointment. I said, that's for guys like me to do. But at the same time, you have to admit that his career is getting stagnant to the point where you have what concerns you have in his off season, that you have to fix this guy or it's just dead money. Most coaches would take that as a hostile question. Yep. Billy answers he answers stuff that Arturas should be answering. He answers stuff that the medical staff should be answering to the best of his ability. He answers for so much. And does he get lengthy with his words? Yes, but he tries to give you an honest answer. It's one of the New York guys walked up to me after and he goes, "That was an unbelievable question." And I was like, I go, "Why?" He goes, "I can't believe you're allowed to ask questions like that." I go, "Why couldn't you?" And he said, we wouldn't even ask Tibbs anything like that. He would get angry at you. And yeah, trust me, I've seen the Tibbs stare. I mean, I've been around long enough to get the stare from Tibbs, or he just shakes his head and looks at you. Billy will try and be as transparent as he can, more than any other coach in the NBA, hands down. It's not even close. Steve Kerr's probably the closest as far as being transparent, but his has a phoniness to it that Billy's doesn't.
Then there are people like Swayze who says, and there are a lot of people since the deadline, even though the deadline started exciting because you thought, okay, Zach's gone. The easy part happened.
A week still left to go. Yeah.
We talked about that. You and I, like right here, doing a live, and then it just flattened out. But even though you got AK up there saying playoffs and play-in and all that shit, I do think fans feel like they did choose a path by trading Zach.
Yes, they chose the path of suckage. I mean, we're seeing that. They're still playing hard, but they just don't have the dudes. On a nightly basis, they just don't have the dudes, and that was evident in the overtime yesterday. And New York was undermanned, and they've got a back-to-back tonight with Cleveland. They may have been kind of peeking ahead. That's a big one. I think it's on ESPN. So, I mean, I get it. But at the same time, the Bulls gave them everything that they, could have won for it. And so, yeah, it felt empty when the deadline actually came. Yes, they moved the contract. But again, I can't preface enough the freedom of getting that pick back. And again, it was your sin. You're just getting your own sin back. But at the same time, it gave the organization some freedom for not only this draft, but the 26th draft, because that draft pick for San Antonio hung over their heads for 2 years.
What do you think about this one? Would love this from Lip Ripper. Would love for the Bulls to trade for Dalton Connect from the Lakers because it seems like he's the odd man out in LA.
He does not look like he wants to be there right now.
Well, I was watching why. The whole trade debacle that he was traded and he wasn't. Now he's back, and
you look like a guy that's really in his feelings. Yeah, but what can you give at this point? I mean,
exactly.
They're an apron team, so they have a lot of restrictions on what they could do. Obviously, when the salary cap comes out, when the new cap comes out, the new line comes out this summer, that could reset some things. So we'll see. But Dalton Connect would be in this offense and what they want to do. I mean, that's a magical piece right there, if you ask me.
So you said modest, but what are the other reasons to watch the Bulls the last 26 games?
So we saw a glimpse of it yesterday. Kobe White, and we talked to him. He talked about it. He was good. He talked about it yesterday off the record and on the record about he now feels that, as Billy put it, the buffer's gone. He always had DeMar. He could always be Robin. It was DeMar was Batman. Then, even to a certain extent, Alex was his Batman at times because he protected his defense. Kobe's not the greatest defender. And then those two are gone. Zach was Batman. And so teams would game plan for Kobe, especially last year when guys were hurt or when DeMar didn't play. He felt that. He saw that he was game planned for, and he was on the board now for teams, which says a lot about his game. But now, as yesterday, the Knicks threw everything at him. They were blitzing him. They were fake blitzing him. They were doing double team. They were putting different guys on him. So he saw the whole kitchen sink of Thibodeau thrown at him. And to his credit, he didn't force much except that last pass that, in the overtime to Vooch. And he even said, I now have to understand that I have to kind of feel the game out, feel what they're doing to me, see how they're playing me, and make the adjustment. So that is huge for him because they have to make a decision. And we've talked about this as well. Josh Giddey, he's a keeper as far as Arturas is concerned. It's just going to be at what price. But Josh Giddey and Kobe have not – it hasn't been the most beautiful ballet when they're playing together. And I get Kobe's – it's not that he's angry at Josh, but I get his anger at the situation that he worked his ass off for 5 years, finally got the ball in his hand as a point guard, put up all-star numbers last year on a team that had some talent on it, and then they go and they get another ball handler and take the ball out of his hand and want him to go back to being that kind of combo guard, at times be playmaker. And so how he plays could be a big, big, big kick the can down the road and not that far decision on do they try and trade Kobe this offseason because he's only got one more year on his deal after this season, or Ayo, who has the same contract years. Because you can't keep both of them. They're not that they're redundant because they do some different things, but at some point you got to break up this big guard logjam. And like I said, their contracts are up at the same time, and they both outperformed their contracts. The Bulls got lucky with both their contracts. So that's going to be huge as far as what's Kobe's ball usage. How does he work with Josh Giddey? I thought both of them did a really good job yesterday. Josh played off the ball, hit some threes, didn't need to be ball dominant. And Kobe, I thought, like he said, it felt like last year where he was playmaking a lot, reading the defense, picking his spots, didn't have the greatest shooting night. But for the most part, I thought you saw a guy that you're saying for the first time, it felt like Josh and he were kind of on the same page. So that's going to be huge over the final 26 games.
They shut down Patrick Williams, but do you see any scenario, for whether it's path or rest or whatever, that Vooch gets shut down at some point down the stretch?
Not Vooch won't do it, and Billy won't do it. Now, could the front office always step in and say, hey, we need to see more of Zach Collins, so we're going to limit your minutes? They can do that. The only edict I know that Billy was told, and Billy didn't really even need to be told because it was kind of an understanding, was that Modest was going to start after the trade deadline. They ended up having to start him early because of some injuries. But that was always out there that Modest's minutes were going to go up. They were kind of getting him in that direction, conditioning wise, and building up the minutes. And so that was coming, and they all knew that. Billy didn't have to be told, but the front office did remind him, hey, we want to get his minutes up, and if that's as a starter, then let's do that, because it's important now that Patrick Williams is out of the picture for at least the next 2 weeks. To me, it's going to be longer than that. Because that's just the reevaluation. I mean, he's got to be conditioned again. To me, best case scenario, it's 3 weeks. But the thing is, and now Jalen Smith suffers a face injury. They don't really have like a body to put on a body. And I'm talking about a wing power forward type body. Kawhi, guys that are kind of built like that. So who's guarding them? And this is going to be a good opportunity for Modest to see if his lack of physicality is going to get overwhelmed and give him an idea of what he has to do in the offseason in the weight room, what kind of strength he has to build to that frame. He knows all that's coming, but you have to feel it. You have to experience it. You have to have those bruises from the NBA to understand, yeah, shit, this is physical. This is a different animal. And say what you want about P. Will, but, what's the Johnny Damon saying? Looks like Tarzan plays like Jane at times.
Yep.
P. Will looks like the Tarzan role. I mean, this is, he's the same age as my oldest son, and they are not the same. They just aren't. One's in law school, and one's got a bad knee.
Trying to find a guy that'll click with him. All right, so the Bulls currently sit in the 8th spot overall, like in terms of like that bottom 10. So right there, 8th.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at here. So Toronto's at 17 wins. They're 5th. Do you think? I don't know if the Bulls can get that low.
Toronto was interesting because they added Ingram, and then they extended Ingram, which kind of went against everything they were preaching and that their players were preaching. I mean, if you remember in the preseason, they had to tell their players to shut up because on media day, all the players were like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We're tanking. Podol was like, yeah, we're tanking. It's fine. We all know. As long as we know. And they're like, shh, you're not allowed to admit it. So that was a strange one. Portland, they've hit a wall lately, but Portland was starting to come on. Scoot Henderson is starting to actually look like a guy that was a top pick or a high, a lot of draft boards.
Yeah, now they're 23 and 33. Bulls are 22 and 34.
Right. But then here's the 2 red flags. And again, this is something else to keep an eye on over the final 26 games. San Antonio shutting down Wemby is a kick in the crotch for the Bulls.
Oh boy.
That's not good. Not that Wemby was what he was doing was resulting in wins and losses, but they were building towards something, and they really wanted to have a good taste this season, wherever they end up, with the addition of De'Aaron Fox and Wemby, what that looks like. That was a kick in the crotch. The other one, the Joel Embiid knee injury, they're going to pull the plug on him any day now. I'm telling you, it's coming. So you have to make up, as much ground or lose as much ground as possible to them to keep them from making that decision. Because I think as long as they see that they're in the play-in, that's one of those teams that could get in the play-in and give you headaches.
100%.
And they know that. But they also know at some point you reach the point of no return and you just pull the plug and let him have his knee surgery now, get his big ass into a hospital, knee surgery, and then get him healthy and get him in some kind of shape, because I haven't seen it for 2 years from him. So, the money he's going to be making, 60-some million, and that contract is just starting. You're not moving it. So you have to get him and make the most out of him that you can. And my fear is if Philly pulls the plug on that, they have no chance. I don't think any chance. Maxi's great, but I don't trust Paul George because if they pull Embiid, why would you keep Paul George out there? So the whole dominoes may fall. They just might say, we're a tanking team now. Those are the two red flags that have come out of the last week is what happens with Philly. And now this Wemby injury is not good for the Bulls.
Yeah, and that puts them so they're 8th. So let's say Philly does pull the plug. The Bulls are already a game and a half better than them. The Spurs, 24 and 29. To me, they're in essence, they're just the same as the Bulls at this point. The Bulls have 3 games in hand, but the Spurs are going to go nowhere fast. I don't see any scenario the Bulls. Obviously, the Wizards are on an island by themselves. The Pelicans and Jazz are at 13 wins, and the Hornets are at 14 wins. Those top 4.
Brooklyn's a team to watch. They've been playing well. They've been playing hard. Yeah. They had the Cavs. I think they were up 2 going into the 4th or late in the second half. We kept checking their score. That's a team the Bulls have to hope can catch on to something. But again, that's a team that everyone knows what they were doing. And if things start to get too close, they will sit players. Brooklyn has no shame in what they want to be and what they want to do, not only this year, but next year. Anyone on that roster is gettable if you want to trade for them. So they are in full, we have to fix this, we have to blow this up. If they feel like they're going to lose position, my fear is that they will start sitting players or at least limiting minutes on guys that are helping in the winning department.
All right, a couple more before I pop out and you do your thing. And a lot of people feel this way, obviously, but hate how the organization is okay with being okay making the play-in game.
Yeah. So there's very few sports where honor isn't get a tip of the cap from the fans. Hey, they're honorable. They're playing. The NBA is one where screw your honor, screw your competitiveness, because a couple good drafts. Look what Houston's doing. I mean, people that say, "Oh, tanking doesn't work." Well, tanking, just flat out purposely losing games, it doesn't always work. Being smart at drafting helps. And when you have a front office that you don't feel is very smart at drafting, putting them in the best position order-wise, where they have their choice of guys instead of, well, this guy or a reach like they did at number 4 with Patrick Williams, when Halliburton was sitting there. You want to take the weapon out of their hands. So I would like Arturas Karnisovas in the lowest spot with the best odds of landing the best pick as possible. He is on some high horse about integrity, competitive integrity, and blah, 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 blah. And I would like to say it's just for show. I think some of it, to a certain extent, is for show because he's worried about the NBA and how he got slapped on the wrist a couple of years ago. But I also think that's the way he's wired. That'd be great if this was the NFL. It'd be great if it was baseball, but it's not. And the NBA, you need to build this thing in the draft and understand the importance of not only being in the lottery, but picking the right guy.
Yeah, that's why it seems like this is going to be a fail. All right, last one for you from me.
Okay.
Where do you think, let's fast forward 26 games from now, where do the Bulls finish in terms of that bottom 10?
I think the Bulls are going to finish 8 to 9, depending on what Philly does. I don't know how much ground they're going to make up, but I have a feeling they're going to finish 8 to 9. And then you, just like every team that's in that top 10, you are praying that, the lottery bounces your way and you at least end up, if you end up in the top 4, the top 3 is a game changer. If you hit the top 3, you're going to game changer. 4 is not awful though. If you're outside of top 4, you better trust your scouts, you better trust your eyes, and you better find the right guy. You can't just say, well, we're a shooting team now, let's get Knipple from Duke. He's a great shooter. I think he could be an NBA player, but do you need him? I mean, does he fit? Does he translate? Yeah, so your scouting department has to be on point. Arturas and Mark Eversley have gone on a lot of trips this year, scouting guys out. So it's not going to be for a lack of watching guys. So unfortunately, I think they are going to be tested this year with this draft class because after 3, there is a drop-off. And then you just have to rely on your scouting department and your eyes.
Ooh, well, after that, I'm not sure I have much trust in scouting and eyes right now based off of recency bias. So, Joe, always love doing this with you, brother. I'm going to turn it back over to you to let you do your thing. Thanks for submitting questions. It looks like we had a couple that did get in. We had some repeats, but we'll keep doing these down the stretch as Bulls fans chime in, Joe.
Sounds good. Let's hit the list. Let's go to the list. The rant, this whole thing was a rant, so Kali Island is what it is. The list. So there's I went through the schedule. There's 5 games that are must lose and would really, really help the situation out. So I'll go from 5 to 1 with the most important ones to lose at the bottom. Number 5, April 4th, the Bulls will host the Trailblazers. Hey, that feels like a good game. April 4th. Sit a couple guys, rest a couple guys. The next one is April 1st. They host Toronto. Again, Toronto's got to come in here. I think it's the last time they played Toronto, or maybe Toronto's one more time earlier. But we're getting to the end there. Toronto's interesting because, like I said, they go against the grain and they get Ingram and then they sign him to a multi-year contract. Kind of strange with the company line that they're preaching the first half of the season, but that's a must lose. March 13th. Brooklyn comes in here. Say what you want to get about Brooklyn. Those boys are playing hard right now. Played really hard on March 13th, Brooklyn. And then the last 2. The number 2 is coming up. That's going to be Monday. Bulls at Philly. In a must lose. Must let Joel Embiid look really good. Maxey, Paul George, the whole crew have them feel good about themselves. And the last one, April 13th, last game of the regular season. Hopefully the last game of this Bulls campaign overall at Philly, season finale. If it comes down to the wire, and that'd be interesting. Does Philly say, we want that number 10 spot, we want the play-in, or have they packed it in by then? And then what do the Bulls do? Are they staring at the barrel and saying, no, competitive integrity, we're going to go out with a good taste in our mouth? And they, Billy coaches his ass off and they win that. And then they go to that play-in and embarrass themselves. So those are the 5 games that I looked at that, hey, not a night to be competitive, not a night to be rah-rah. Let's just sit this one out, boys. So that's it. I like doing the live thing. It was kind of fun. Thanks for everybody that submitted stuff. Thanks, Ryan, for setting this up. And until next week, I got next.